Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is John Bodner. I am a CFP. That's going to be the first acronym of many you hear tonight on this webinar. That stands for Certified Financial Planner. I have my own financial planning practice here in New Jersey since 1988. I'm the old guy. Here's the young guy. Next to me is our other resident CFP, Justin Esposito. And we are here today to talk about what we do every day in this office, which is help people navigate major life events.
Yeah, and taking a hit to your income, I would say checks the box as a major life event.
Absolutely, absolutely. And before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping. You may have already noticed that you are muted, all right? Which is good for me. That way I don't hear your dogs barking or my grandchildren in the background making noise. And I've also turned off all your videos too, so I don't see people making faces and stuff at me. All right? So you're muted. We're going to have our camera turned off here in a minute. I know it's going to be upsetting to some of you, especially Jeannie Bass, because she's probably already noticed that I'm wearing her paisley tie that she bought me with my seersucker suit. It is July in New Jersey. This is appropriate garb for July in New Jersey. But I don't want you concentrating on the paisley tie. I want you concentrating on the slides. So we're going to be turning off our screen here in a minute. And last but not least, this is being recorded, and it will be uploaded to the Bodner Financial YouTube channel in a week or so. So you'll be able to share that link with friends and family who might be interested in this data. So I am going to say goodbye visually here in a moment, but we're still here in the audio world. So how about if we just dive right in here into navigating cut hours and layoffs? All right. So, Justin, I'm going to let you start, kid. Go ahead.
Layoffs, right? They have always been a reality of life for everyone, from new hires to people who have been working in the same field and maybe even the same company for 30 plus years. And the fear of layoffs is especially top of mind right now. Believe me, it's not a coincidence that we are having this topic as a webinar in the summer of 2025. While the US is technically adding jobs every month, some of the largest employers in the country are openly admitting that they are downsizing their teams. You've seen this in the news and on radio. Companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Walmart, Ford, JP Morgan Chase, UPS, Starbucks, the federal government, Meta, and I bet all of you out there can name plenty more. I mean, it's every week there's a new employer in the headlines these days. And job markets are cyclical, and for some sectors, we are kind of in a crummy one. And believe me, nobody, and I mean nobody, is 100% safe from cycles of layoffs. We might have some people on this webinar who are in their 20s or 30s, they're single, renting apartments in the city, or we might have others who are 55 years old with 3 kids in college, and we have plenty that fall somewhere in the middle. Whatever chapter of life you are in, let's not panic, because we are in this foxhole together, and we're going to help guide you through.
Foxhole together. I like that. I like how you did that. Foxhole together. Great. So if we do our jobs tonight, we're all going to climb out of this foxhole together alive. All right. We're going to walk away from this seminar tonight, this webinar, with a plan that you can start implementing first thing tomorrow morning. So here is what we are up against. All right. It takes an average of 26 weeks for people ages 55 to 64 to find a job. 26 weeks. If you do the math, that's 6.5 months. It takes 19 weeks for people between 25 and 34 years old to find a job. Our objective here tonight is to minimize the impact that these weeks, these 19 to 26 weeks, have on your ability to achieve your long-term, lifetime financial goals. All right. Now, because you're watching this webinar, I know that you're a go-getter and you will land somewhere. You will land something somewhere. How do I know this? Because you care enough to show up to things like this webinar, right? It means you are proactive. You are not reactive. That's all good. This is good stuff. And that's why you will survive this. So tonight, we're going to help you make sure that these 19 to 26 weeks, maybe less, maybe more, but we're going to make sure that these weeks don't cost you years of retirement. All right? We don't want weeks to end up costing years in the long run. So that's our objective, right? Our objective tonight, we're going to help you act quickly to minimize the impact that losing a job or having your hours cut can have on your life, because we only get one life. And as we say here at Bodner Financial, life's too short to worry about money. All right.
It is too short to worry about money, but we will worry about time and get you out of here. So, with that in mind, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about what to collect before you clock out, finding new health insurance, which might include life and disability, managing cash flow and budgeting, reviewing severance packages, deferring and reducing debt payments, adjusting tax withholding, understanding unemployment benefits, and last but not least is keeping retirement savings and life building goals on track. So we're going to hit all these various topics in the next 40 minutes or so. Now, what to collect before you clock out? First, you want to download pay stubs, W-2s, or any benefit summaries from your employee portal. In fact, if you can get a copy of your handbook, employee handbook, you want to grab that as well, which it might be in your portal. So look there, you might find it. An important question to ask is what happens to your health insurance and when does it end? The reason being is because if your hours are being reduced, you might get to hold on to your health insurance. So you want to ask that question. You also want to confirm the amount of your final paycheck. In many states, employers are required by law to pay out unused vacation or paid time off when you separate from a company. Now, sick leave payout, that's not always required, and the rules vary by state and employer policy. You want to make sure that you are paid for all hours worked, which includes any overtime or commissions. You want to get every cent that you are owed paid to you. Now, some states require same-day payment upon termination, and others allow payment on the next scheduled payday. It varies, right? So you want to find that out. Another piece of important information is to ask HR for a separation letter. This is the document from your employer that confirms what your last day of employment was, the reason your employment ended, for example, whether it be a layoff, a reduction in hours, maybe your position was eliminated, but it'll give a reason. It'll state your title of your job and the dates of employment. You may need this for applying for benefits or housing assistance, so you certainly want to grab that separation letter. And remember, let's not leave behind any money, right? So get what is necessary to roll over your retirement account. Maybe it might just be a phone call or it might be paperwork, but you will ask and you will find out. Another thing that's hard to think about, but in the time, if there are people willing to write you a letter of recommendation or be a reference on your resume, you want to strike while the iron is hot. You want to ask now because in several weeks from now, they might forget about you or they may not be inclined to do that. But if you ask right away, you might get a favorable recommendation or a reference that could be really useful for finding the next job there. And most importantly, do not feel pressured to accept your severance package right away. We will get into this in more detail later, but this is important. You are not obligated to sign anything before you walk out the door. In fact, it's best practice to get it reviewed by a financial planner or a lawyer, or maybe even both, depending on the circumstances around the layoff.
That's all good stuff, Justin. You've gotten really smart since you worked here. Right? I mean, that's great. All right, let's dive into one of the most important buttons that seems to get pushed when things like this happen, which is health insurance. All right, find new health insurance. If your hours have dropped below your benefit eligibility, right, you're no longer eligible for your health insurance. First stop would be to see if you can get on your spouse's health insurance. If you're married, or in certain states, if you have a significant other, right, you might be able to get on a spouse's plan. That would be great. For the younger professionals in the crowd, you might be able to go back on your parents' plan for a while, not forever, but for a while. So that's the first stop, right? Is to see if there's another plan available that you can be accepted into. Then we go to COBRA. All right, here's another acronym, right? And nobody in this room knows what COBRA means. In fact, nobody knows what COBRA means, except old men like me who remember a guy named Ronald Reagan, because COBRA goes back that far. COBRA goes back to the mid 1985 or 1986, and it is not short for like continuation of benefits. It was actually part of a much bigger bill that time called it's a mouthful of government legalese. It was Consolidated Omnibus Reconciliation Act. About that, I got it. All right. So COBRA is a small part of a huge federal law that was passed in the mid 80s that allows you to continue the same health coverage you had while you were employed, meaning you can keep the same doctor, same benefits. But the difference is that you have to pay the full cost yourself, plus a small 1 to 2% administrative fee. So you will quickly find out if you inquire about COBRA how much your employer was paying, because that's what you have to pay now. All right. COBRA will usually allow you up to 60 days to elect that coverage, right? And the coverage, however, will be retroactive back to your last day of work if you choose it to be, right? So remember, COBRA is not a permanent solution, that it can temporarily insure you for up to 18 months. There are some circumstances, there's some fine print that it could be a little bit longer, but figure 18 months COBRA maximum. Next thing, it's not cheap. As I mentioned before, you have to now pay the completely unsubsidized cost. It is very expensive usually, but healthcare is important, especially for people in active treatments of some sort. So keeping the same doctors and keeping the same exact benefits you had now might be very mission critical to you, right? It is a high anxiety time. So COBRA is definitely a possibility. Alternatively, though, you might qualify for the third thing on this list, which is Obamacare Marketplace, all right, which was not passed in the 1980s, all right? Almost all of us are familiar with Obamacare. The big thing about Obamacare is that it is subsidized under the Affordable Care Act if your income drops. This is likely much less expensive than COBRA. And most importantly, you cannot be denied for pre-existing conditions, but you may have to switch doctors. All right. Thirdly, short-term health insurance. All right. These are temporary private health plans that are designed for short gaps in coverage. They're not available in all states, but they're usually much, much cheaper than COBRA and even cheaper than Obamacare sometimes. But they have higher out-of-pocket costs, they have higher deductibles, higher copays, right? So while COBRA gives you full coverage of what you had before, these short-term plans are much more limited. It usually excludes all types of preventative care and prescriptions and maternity, mental illness, all this stuff that's usually covered under COBRA or even Obamacare usually isn't covered under these short-term health plans. If you have pre-existing conditions, they would be grandfathered into COBRA, but probably not here. All right. So I want you to keep in mind, COBRA is a strong option for people with ongoing medical needs who are in active treatments, and short-term insurance might be appealing to healthy individuals, usually younger, who just need temporary emergency only type care. Obamacare falls somewhere in the middle. All right. Finally, if your income drops low enough, you might, and I would put might in all caps, underline, bold, right? You might, right, be eligible for Medicaid, right? It's free or very low cost, but you're looking at very, very limited provider options, right? And recently, and I mean very recently, like in the last 2 weeks, part of the big, beautiful bill that just passed Congress and the president signed made Medicaid requirements more stringent, especially for healthy young people. There is a healthy young person's work option in that. All right. So we're going to have to see how this whole big, beautiful bill shakes out in practice over the next couple of months. And I'm going to predict that each state is going to be a little different too. All right. So on this webinar tonight, I know for a fact that we have people from all different walks of life. So depending upon your age and your individual circumstances, Medicaid might be an option, but not for many of you. And finally, if you've lost your job but still have kids to cover, CHIP, another acronym, all right, that's Children's Health Insurance Program. CHIP can bridge the gap affordably, right? CHIP is a low cost, sometimes even free insurance for kids and pregnant women and families that earn too much for Medicaid, but still need some help. These CHIP benefits usually include doctor visits, prescriptions, dental, vision, immunizations, almost like COBRA, inpatient, outpatient hospital. There's lab services, there's x-rays, emergencies, ambulance, behavioral care, potentially even more, right? But it depends upon the state you're in, and there's you have to be means tested for it, all right? So a lot of options in health insurance. The thing to remember is years and years ago, this was immediate red alert. Like, oh my God, I lost my job. And that means I'm going to lose my health insurance and I'm on some meds and I'm not going to be able to get health insurance outside in the open market. That world doesn't exist anymore since the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You will get health insurance no matter what your health, either through COBRA or through the marketplace. All right. So, you might move from green to amber, but it's not red alert anymore. All right. Also, keep in mind that this is health insurance. That might not be the only thing you need to replace after leaving your job. Many large companies will offer group life insurance and group long-term disability insurance as part of your benefits package. We're going to get into that in a later slide, but I encourage you, once again, as Justin pointed out, I encourage you to take a full inventory of what your company offered you when you were hired. Get a copy of that employee handbook. It's as he mentioned, it's probably in your employee portal. You'll download it into a PDF and you put that on your desktop. All right. And maybe even just kind of glance through it and refresh your own memory. Share it with us if you're a client of ours and this happens to you. This is one of the most overlooked parts of financial planning, known as risk management. All these different insurances, right? It's not as fun and as sexy as talking about stocks and bonds and the investment options in your 401k, but risk management is just as important in financial planning as any of the investment stuff. All right. All right, moving on. Well, here's the slide. We can tell that Jackie Bodner Webster did this presentation for us because there he is. There's the man in black. She can't resist a Princess Bride slide. All right. And she does it with the B word. Oh, is that Black Knight? Budget? See, they both start with B. It could be. That's very possible. But we know that budget is a B word for a reason. Everyone hates them. And the only thing we all hate more than making a budget is sticking to one. But as that great philosopher, the man in black, once said, life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something. So we are going to immediately look at our cash flow should something like this happen to you, and we're going to look at our budget.
Yeah.
And with that, I give you the Black Knight of Bodner Financial here, Justin Esposito.
Yeah, and just for that, we have a budget template. And if you are interested in using it, email us to request a copy and we can send you one. We would recommend printing out 2 copies, one to fill in with the average spending totals of your last 3 months to see what your cash flow looks like right now. And then a second one with your adjustments to see what it's going to take to keep more money coming in than going out. And you are going to put everything on there, every dollar coming in and every dollar coming out. For our younger folks, that might include student debt payments. And for more seasoned professionals, maybe that includes 529 contributions for the kids and grandkids, or maybe even long-term care premiums. Once you have that filled out, you're going to do the math at the bottom. And if there is more money going out the door than coming in, it's time to reassess your spending habits. This is where you get out a piece of paper and a sharp number 2 Ticonderoga, John's favorite tool, and you start drilling down on your wants versus needs. What can you live without? I mean, how many streaming services do you have right now? At least in my household, there's probably at least a dozen, and we only really need maybe 1 or 2. I'm sure it's maybe the same on your end. Or maybe you can save money by going to BYOB restaurants and maybe even stop eating out at restaurants entirely for a period of time and do more home cooked meals. You want to be honest with yourself about this wants versus needs. The more honest you are with yourself, the better outcome you're going to have when it comes to actually getting through this. Now, one of the things we really want to avoid during this period of time is avoid taking on new debt if we can, right? As best as we can, try to avoid it. If you do, use credit cards or loans only as a last resort. If you must borrow, you want to look for 0% interest offers or low interest alternatives like a credit union loan. Now, credit unions are not for profits, so they usually have better rates, lower fees, and more flexible approval, which is easier. You can use a credit union for personal loans for things like emergencies or debt consolidation. You could use a credit union for auto loans, home equity or mortgage loans, even credit builder loans, right? But you have to join the credit union, which usually requires living in a certain area, maybe working in a specific field, or donating to a partner group. However, I will mention there are a few credit unions that are open to anyone as long as you have a valid address, social security number, and are willing to make a small deposit into a savings account, sometimes as small as $5. But the main takeaway here that we're trying to get to is that untimely credit cards are a cancer. So let's try not to open one, all right? If you do have balances on existing credit cards, though, you got to make a list of every debt you have and focus on paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. Make sure you pay the minimum on all the balances, but focus on one single card at a time with the highest interest to start checking them off and taking them off the list, okay? If your credit cards are really out of control, you might want to consider debt consolidation. Consolidating your debt means combining your high interest rate credit card balances into one large balance with a lower interest rate. And it's not just credit cards you can consolidate. You can consolidate things like medical debt, student loans, personal loans, and much more. All right. Consolidating might allow you to pay down debt faster while paying less interest. Does that sound too good to be true? Well, it depends, right? Consolidation makes sense if the money you save from the lower interest rate is greater than the cost of transferring your debt, because there is a transfer fee or cost of moving your money from one place to another. We can help you with that math to see if it makes sense. So don't get overwhelmed. That's what we're here for.
That is all very true. Be careful of the debt consolidation, right? That's almost the last resort too. It almost most times it is too good to be true, but not always. And so don't be shy. Feel free to share it with us. All right. But let's move on to the severance package. All right. Hopefully you've been offered one if this happens to you, right? That you've been offered a severance package on the way out. But before you accept it, again, strongly recommend to get it reviewed by a professional, get a fresh set of eyes. It's an emotional time for you. Get a third party to look at it. Here's some of the things we look at, right? First and foremost, is there a severance pay amount and how much is it? What are you being offered, right? A very common formula is 2 weeks of pay per year of service up to a maximum of 1 year. This varies. It's, all over, uh, uh, from no severance at all to sometimes more than a year's worth. But that's the first thing, right? Is there a severance pay amount? Next is, will it be paid in a lump sum or paid over a period of time, right? Does it matter? Well, it might if you plan on applying for unemployment, all right? So there's some unemployment considerations for you if you have the opportunity to choose, right? Sometimes you don't get to pick and choose how the severance is going to be paid. Your employer, your soon to be prior employer tells you how it's going to be. But if there's a choice, it could be a big difference if you choose lump sum or paid out over weeks or months. Remember that no matter how it's paid, it's not a gift. It's taxable income. How will taxes be withheld? Will taxes be withheld? Will it be included in your W-2 or will it come on a separate form 1099? All right. Will your employer pay part or all of that COBRA coverage that we just talked about? Some will, some won't. All right. What happens to your unused vacation days, sick days, bonuses, stock options, and retirement plan contributions? If will your retirement contributions continue to be made if your severance is paid out over months, weeks, and months, right? And let me back up to stock options and equity comp. Remember, we here at Partner Financial love clients who have equity compensation. We love stock options. We love RSUs, restricted stock units, right? These are really great benefits for our clients. There's very strict rules about what happens to equity comp, whether they're non-qualified stock options, if they're incentive stock options. Does the vesting continue? Sometimes there's only a 90-day window. Again, this is why it's really important to download that employee workbook. It's also important if you have any stock options or any equity compensation, you may have kind of blown it off a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years ago when when that equity compensation was granted to you. There are stock option grant letters somewhere in your portal. Get those, get your hands on those, because it will tell us if the vesting continues or if it's immediate vesting. Do not, when Justin says don't leave any money on the table, this is one of the things we're really talking about. All right. I have had clients who have either left the company or been downsized and they never exercised their options. One lady left $200,000 on the table. She worked for a bank. All right. And it just evaporated. Poof. All right. So don't let that happen to you. All right. COBRA coverage, we already went through COBRA, but HSA, FSA access. Will you still be able to access your HSA? That's Health Savings Account, right? Health Savings Account. FSA is Flex Spending Account. HSAs are portable you leave the company, any money that you've put into an HSA stays with you. All right. And you're going to be able to spend it over the years. You will get your hands working together. We'll get our hands on that HSA. The flex spending account, you may remember that's the one where you have money deducted out of your paycheck, and it's either being used like one of the two flavors of flex spending accounts is it's either used for daycare, childcare, or for like pharmacy expenses and other medical expenses. And it's a use it or lose it. That's why usually the pharmacy is so crowded the last week of in December, because all the corporate employees who have FSA accounts are trying to spend the money before it's gone. Any money left in your FSA at the end of the year reverts back to the company, even though it came out of your paycheck. Okay, so we got to figure out what the FSA rules are. Will it last till the end of the year, or do you have to submit expenses in a very small window right after you get terminated? We got to find that out. Also, so down here under legal clauses and restrictions, right? Are there any non-competes, right? Are there any non-solicitations? Are there any NDA clauses in there? Are you okay with them? What are the existing clauses you agreed to when you got hired? You signed something, probably don't even remember. We need to reread what you already signed when you were hired. There are severance agreements that may add or extend the restrictions that you already agreed to. You know, this could be things like working for a competitor, starting your own business, contacting your clients or your coworkers. It may limit your ability to earn in the industry that you're in. So we can't ignore this, right? Most severance packages also require you to give up the right to sue the company, either for wrongful termination, age discrimination, et cetera, right? This is the Lawyers Full Employment Act here. Speaking of a lawyer, though, you might want to consult one. You might want to consult an employment attorney if you think you were wrongfully terminated or if you were being pressured to sign quickly, and especially if you're over age 40, which sounds very young to me. But if you're over age 40, you may be waiving rights under ADEA, right? That's the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, right? Which has a lot of legal protections. So if you find yourself angry at yourself, that you're kicking yourself for signing in the heat of the moment, there may still be hope. There is, almost every state has a cooling off period. Most of them are at least 7 days, meaning that you have this window after you sign, even if you sign the severance agreement and give up a bunch of rights, there's usually a 7-day cooling off period to revoke what you sign. So best practice, don't sign in the heat of the moment. And even if you kind of cool off yourself, there's still another 7-day cool off period, right?
Yes, yes, good information there. And one of the things we want to make sure is, not to go silent, right? You want to be able to contact creditors and billers proactively. So if your income drops, the worst thing you could do is go silent. Okay. Most lenders and service providers would rather work with you than see you fall behind and ruin your credit score. Believe me, you're not as valuable to them if you're not paying your bills, right? They want you to pay. So be proactive and explain your situation, because oftentimes you could pause, reduce, or restructure payments by contacting these creditors before you miss a due date. You can ask them about hardship forbearance. This is a temporary relief that pauses payments or interest due to hardship. You might qualify for one of those. You can also ask about deferred payments. This means delaying payments without penalty. You could also ask them about reducing your interest or fees. Credit card companies or lenders, they may lower your interest rate or waive late fees, or maybe even offer a temporary low payment plan if you ask. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. If you are a renter out there, you can check with local housing assistance programs or nonprofits for emergency support. So speak up, and maybe you'll get an answer that will help you in this situation. Another thing that's usually overlooked, because there's a lot going on in this time, is adjusting your tax withholding, right? after a layoff or reduction in hours, it's important. And it's most of the time, like I mentioned, overlooked. You don't want to have your cash flow affected or have a surprise come in the spring of next year that you're not anticipating. Tax withholding, this is the money that your employer automatically takes out of your paycheck for federal and sometimes state too, depending on where you live. So if your income drops, typically your tax liability drops too because you have less income to report. So if you don't adjust your tax withholding, there is a chance that maybe you're overpaying taxes currently when really you could reduce your tax withholding. And I'm sure that extra cash flow at this time could be very helpful for you. Or it could be the opposite. Maybe you're underpaying. And guess what? You do not want to have a surprise come in the spring of the following year that you're going to owe money on top of not knowing that while your income is reduced. And let's not forget, this is usually forgotten, unemployment benefits, they are taxable. Yes, unemployment benefits are taxable. Why? It's the government. Everything's taxable, right? They want to collect their money. And the kicker is they don't automatically withhold taxes unless you ask them. This is where that surprise can come in the spring of the following year. There is a form called the W-4, and you can fill that out and elect to have a percentage withheld from your unemployment checks. And we would suggest that you have something withheld. I mean, it's better to have something on deposit than not have anything because you really don't want to have a surprise come that you're going to owe more in the spring of the following year.
Yes, unemployment is taxable. It's one of the most common surprises. We get surprise phone calls in the spring all the time from folks when they're doing their taxes. And they're like, what? That unemployment was friggin' taxable? I have to pay tax on it? I'm like, yes, yes, yes. It's the government. Of course you do. So, yes, unemployment is not a gift. It's not, and severance is not a gift. Unemployment is not a gift. You are going to declare it on your uh, IRS Form 1040. It's gonna be there. All right. All right. Unemployment benefits. Speaking of which, all right, if you're eligible, go to your state's unemployment website and apply right away. All right. Benefits may take weeks to arrive into your checking account, but they do almost always go retroactive. They apply retroactive back to that week that you lost your job or your hours were reduced. So don't be shy. Go to that state unemployment website and apply right away. In most states, you will qualify if one of the following have happened. You lost your job or you had your hours significantly reduced through no fault of your own. So you don't even have to lose your job totally to possibly qualify for unemployment benefits. Number two, you must have earned a minimum amount set by your state during what they refer to as the base period, all right, which is usually the 12 to 18 months of work history prior to you losing your job. Rarely, if ever, do you get a job for a week, and then if something happens and you lose that job, you usually don't get unemployment benefits based on that job. You have to have a base period of time working. And the third hoop to jump through is you need to be actively available and you're looking for work. So check your state or visit benefits.gov to see what you qualify for. But my advice is even if you're not sure you qualify, apply anyway. It's kind of like a riff on the old Mother Cabrini, which, by the way, Mother Cabrini's birthday was just the other last week. Yes, so it's kind of a riff on the old Mother Cabrini line of don't ask permission, ask forgiveness. Just apply. And if you weren't eligible, say, oh, sorry, I thought I wasn't sure, right? So even if you're not sure, do it anyway, right? Many people assume they're not eligible when they actually are, especially after, as I mentioned before, a reduction in hours or a non-traditional job loss. Non-traditional, I mean being let go from a contract or a temp or a gig role, right? Furloughs, where the employer technically keeps you on the payroll, but stops paying you temporarily, right? Seasonal work that ends early. You might have thought you had a job for 3 months in the summer and there was a fire at the camp or the club you worked at, or they shut down the swimming pool or something, and you lost your job in July instead of September. That's seasonal work ending early, right? Leaving a job for good cause, like it was an unsafe working condition, there was unpaid wages, something happened in your family, you needed to care for a dependent, something like that. Or maybe the company closed down. The boss retired, somebody died, there was a change, they sold the business, right? And the ownership changed, and you're not rehired. Any of these things could quite probably qualify you for unemployment benefits. So if in doubt, just apply. All right. And which leads me to like the John Bodner karma law of the universe regarding this entire subject. All right. And I can't tell you why over the last 40 years I have found this to be true, but it is as true can be. All right. Here's the mantra: it's always easier to get a job when you have a job. There's a force in the universe. The universe knows when you're unemployed and doesn't have a job and messes with you. So the way you get back at the universe is you just get a job. All right. And what I mean by that is any job. Find work, any work. Focus on securing an immediate income now. And your second long-term career goal is in second place behind finding work now. I am daring you to be underemployed for a while. All right. In my 40 years of financial planning, I can tell you the biggest threat to your job search, oftentimes in screwing up your long-term financial planning, is your own ego. All right. People who get stuck are the people who think they're bigger than the opportunities right in front of their face. I want you to think about gig work to fill gaps, about driving, about deliveries, about doing freelance work, childcare, tutoring. All right. Figure out where certain businesses just need bodies. Think about this guy in this slide. Looks like he's a substitute teacher. This is a great example. Get a job. I want you to think outside the box about where you can apply your background and your skills, not just your professional skills, but your creative skills. And for some more seasoned professionals, maybe you can independently consult for a while based on your field of expertise. All right. And then when you're not working this part-time gig job, or not your ideal job, but when you're not working in this job, you schedule time each day for job hunting, where you do search out, your ideal job. Treat your job search like it's a part-time gig, because that's what we're hoping it is. It's a part-time gig until you get your next full-time job in your career. Is this ideal? Is this perfect? Of course it's not. All right. I'm not saying this is perfect, but what I'm telling you is based upon my experience of 40 years in this business. Do not let your ego sabotage your life goals. There is never shame in hard, honest work. And I don't care what kind of work it is. All right. If you're providing for yourself and your loved ones while building toward your life goals, that's what I would call a badass. All right. You're a Bodner Financial badass because, repeat the mantra, it's always easier to get a job when you have a job. All right. So I think I beat that one into the ground. So we'll move on to the next slide. Do not pause contributions to retirement savings. Some people will tell you that if cash is tight, it's okay to stop contributing to 401k or savings accounts for now. Some people might even tell you it's okay to dip into those accounts for emergencies. Guess what? Based upon what I just told you in the prior slide, Justin and I are not two of those people that would give you that kind of advice. All right. Do not tap into your retirement savings to cover your cash flow. All right, one more time. I repeat, do not tap into your retirement savings to cover your cash flow. It's not a great idea. I mean, if it's absolute double, triple red alert, then maybe you'll have to. But Justin's going to give you some real life examples
Absolutely.
here.
Remember in the beginning of this webinar, we said that what you do during these weeks between jobs can cost you years of retirement savings. Well, we're going to get into it. And this is what we meant. Rating your 401k, 403b, or your thrift savings plan, it can set you back years due to loss compounding, taxes, and penalties. And we're going to illustrate this to drive this home to make it a reality for you. All right. So let's say you have a 401k balance of 100,000 and that 401k is heavily invested in stocks. So you're seeing an average return of about 10% annualized. And you have 25 years to retirement. So if you have 100,000, 25 years to retirement, and a 10% annualized rate of return, if you look here, it's pretty much of a miracle. That compounding would grow to over $1 million. All right. But
And that doesn't include any future contributions. That's just 100 grand that's there now.
that's just leaving what's
That's
there
not
now.
making contributions for 25 years.
Yeah, it's a miracle. 100,000 over $1 million, 25 years at 10%. But what happens if you panicked and you take out 30,000 today? What does that look like? And I'm going to show you that here in 1 second, but I'm letting you think to see how drastically different it will be from what you're seeing on this slide. And here we go. Yes, if you read this correctly and you're doing the math, you're missing 325,000. All right, so you're going from a million, over $1 million, to $758,429 approximately. And guess what? It gets worse.
What could be worse than that?
Well, I'm going to show you right here. Here's the kicker, right? You're not even going to take home that 30,000 withdrawal that you took out. Why? Because you're going to get hit with a 10% penalty, right? If you're under the age of 59 and a half, when you go file your tax return, they're going to assess an early withdrawal penalty. And guess what? You're also picking it up as income. So you're going to pay federal taxes as well as state if you're in a state that has taxes. So if this was your scenario and you took out 30,000 and you had a 10% penalty and you were in the 24% federal tax bracket and you had some state taxes withheld, after it's all said and done, that 30,000 distribution is a little less than 18 grand, just a little bit more than half of what you were thinking you were taking out. So not only did you lose out on 325,000 over the long run, that 30,000 actually netted a little more than half of what you thought you were going to get.
So that's some powerful stuff there. That's which leads me to one of my all-time favorite people in the whole world here, Charlie Munger. For those of you unaware, Charlie Munger was, may he rest in peace, he just died last year. He was Warren Buffett's business partner from the start of Berkshire Hathaway. All right. And that, what Justin just showed, is the power of compound interest. And that is why we want to exercise every other alternative possible before we mess with the compounding. Or as Charlie Munger would say, the first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Or as we say here at Bodner Financial, don't mess with my compounding. All right. We want you instead to look at hardship programs from creditors and lenders. We're going to look at unemployment benefits, side income gigs. It's always easier to get a job when you have a job. Just dive in, make some money. Credit union personal loans, all these things. And then finally, of course, ask yourself, what can I change in my budget, parentheses, temporarily, all right, before I raid my future? Because that's what you're doing when you mess with compounding. You are raiding your own future. All right. So don't do it. Don't do it. So remember, loans and spending cuts are temporary. Loans eventually get paid off. We can adjust our budgets, over time as we get back in the full-time workforce. Retirement is forever. It's not temporary. Retirement is a lifetime of unemployment. Retirement is for life until you die. It's a long time, retirement. Don't screw it up. All right. You really don't want to run out of money in retirement. It's a bad scene. For the younger folks on the webinar, if you can keep contributing to your retirement, great, do it. You might have to cut back, but that's okay. Just try to keep the discipline going. Every dollar you can put away still has decades to grow. You go back to that slide that Justin showed. You can, if you lose your 401k plan because you're unemployed, you can open up a individual retirement account. You can do this independently of your employer. We can help you with that. We open dozens and dozens of IRAs every year. If you're over age 50, and when you get reemployed, don't forget, you can be making catch-up contributions to your retirement accounts. So if you stop making contributions for a few months now, make it a point to catch up later as soon as possible. She slipped the second one in here, that old Jackie B. Yes, yes. So we go from the man in black to, I know it's Montoya. What is it? Inigo Montoya, something like that. He's an obsessive man. He's obsessive. Never again, you killed my father. Okay. Well, if this layoff caught you really unprepared, learn from it. Make a plan for it to never happen again. Never again. You don't have to go out and buy the sword. The hair is nice. The hair is good. But make a plan for it so you're never in this position again. What's step one? Well, when you bounce back, and you will bounce back, I already went through that, right? You're going to open up a high interest savings account. You're going to go to one of these online banks. You're going to go to Ally. You're going to go to CIT. You're going to go to Goldman Sachs, Marcus. You are going to open up a new rainy day emergency fund. You're going to set up auto contributions each month or each paycheck to squirrel away savings. You are going to be a squirrel and save those acorns before you can spend it. And you're going to build up 6 months worth of living expenses in an emergency savings account. And then you're going to watch that beautiful 4% interest rate start working for you. Back in the financial, during COVID, these rates were paying like zero. They are now, most of them, at or near 4%. And then when you do land that new job, you're going to make sure you're maxing out your new 401k plan at a minimum of the company match, whatever that formula is. And we're going to help you. If you don't know how to do that, we're going to help you do that. And maybe even talk to your HR department or go into the 401k portal and increase your contributions. All right. And remember, you can contribute beyond the match to make up for lost time. Just keep your annual contributions under the limit set by the federal government. This is something we didn't talk about, but if you have 2 employers in the same year, remember, the second employer later in the year doesn't remember and doesn't know what you put in with that first employer, prior employer. So you got to be careful that you don't max out. Again, something we can look at when we look at your last paycheck from the prior employer and your new paycheck. All right. That also goes with Social Security, that you might overpay your Social Security taxes. Again, something we can revisit. Wonderful problem to have. It means you're saving too much money, and it means you paid too much in taxes. All right?
Yeah, and another thing we mentioned briefly, but we want to come back to it to, never happen again, is if you are working in corporate America, especially, you might want to consider taking out life and disability insurance on your own. Because once you are no longer employed, you're going to lose that life insurance and disability insurance, which might be really critical for your family. So if you are in good health, you can look at something like a term life insurance policy. It's always good to have something personally owned. And if you aren't in the best of health and you wouldn't qualify for most life insurance, there is a possibility that you can convert your group term insurance into a personally owned permanent policy. But, it's expensive and it's a scramble, but you have to act fast, but that's something you do want to consider is having some personally owned either life or disability insurance in case this event ever happened again, that you don't have that worry that you don't have that insurance to protect you on the risk management side of financial planning.
All right, Justin, great point. I said it before, you've gotten very smart since you started working here. So we're going to wrap this up. So all of you on the call, thanks for being here tonight. We hope you found this information helpful. There was a lot. This is like a fire hose information coming at you. But honestly, we're here to answer any questions you may have. Seriously, any questions, all right? If you want a copy of that budget template, or if you want us to review your severance package, just reach out. The contact info is right there on the screen. For those of you who are close to retirement, over age 55, and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I even want to bother trying to get a new job. Maybe I can afford to just retire a few years early. Or maybe I can really kind of downsize my career that, instead of making six figures, maybe I can make, only 50,000, get a part-time gig. Can I swing that? We do that analysis here every day. We can help you with that math, all right? If you're feeling completely overwhelmed and need someone to help you calm down, if you've gone from solid green to complete red alert and you're just feel like you can't get your finances organized, that's another reach out. Don't be shy. We do in-person meetings here in New Jersey and New York, and we can Zoom for you out-of-towners, right? I know for a fact that a lot of you on this webinar are friends and family of clients of ours, and you might be a little hesitant to cold call us with like a long list of worries. Don't worry, all right? I'm not going to send you a bill. Friends and there's no such, we don't charge by the hour. You're not going to get an invoice. These are, for some of you, these are high anxiety times. I absolutely get it. Don't worry about it. Call us. If you turn out to be some kind of nut and you're spending hours of my time, then maybe I'll have to send you an invoice. But in all likelihood, that isn't going to happen. All right. The fact that you're proactive, the fact that you're listening to this right now means you're going to be fine. We know you're going to be fine. It'll be okay. We are all going to get through this together. I love the foxhole analogy. Yeah. Very good, Justin. We will get through this together. It's the old keep calm and carry on poster, right? Keep calm. Pour yourself a nightcap. Maybe make it a double. Maybe you should rent The Princess Bride tonight for some laughs. And most importantly, have a great night, everyone. We're going to talk to you soon, and I'm going to sign off.
Yeah, but before we go, I got to make sure that we do the most important thing. One more slide. Our attorneys want you to know, here's our disclosure, and Bonner Financial and LPL does not provide legal advice or tax services. So we would really hate to omit that important information.
Oh, it's very important.
And
yes.
One other thing is we want to personally say goodbye to you and have a good night, everyone.
I got the tie on, Jeannie. I got the tie with the seersucker.
It's looking good. Have a good night, everyone. We look forward to hearing from you.
See you. Night, night.